Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. This is my review for Peter Pan, which is the third movie in the Silver Age of Disney's animation canon. This is based off the J.M. Barrie play Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up. And it's about a boy named Peter Pan who lives in Neverland, has the ability to fly, is accompanied by a fairy named Tinkerbell, and he is adored by the Darling family. The father, not so much. The mother just seems to kind of go with it. The two youngest siblings, John and Michael, love to reenact Peter Pan's adventures, while Wendy is the authority on Peter Pan, but also might have a crush on him. So one day, Peter Pan enters the Darling's home as the two parents are off at a party, and he invites Wendy, John, and Michael to fly with him to Neverland, where they never have to grow up. And from here on out, they experience adventures involving Indians, the Lost Boys, and the notorious pirate captain, Captain Hook, who has a vendetta against Peter Pan. Like, this is a strong Captain Ahab, Moby Dick vendetta. So I talked about Alice in Wonderland last week and mentioned that it's my favorite of the Disney animated movies that Walt made while he was alive, and definitely my favorite in the Silver Age by default. Peter Pan is my second favorite in the Silver Age for a lot of the same reasons why I love Alice in Wonderland. I loved this movie growing up as a kid because it just seemed like every fantasy for every kid out there, whether you're a boy or a girl. Just the ability to fly, go on these adventures, live in a world where you never have to grow up. Like, it's pure fantasy in every sense of the word, and I loved it. But as I got older, I started getting more familiar with the J.M. Barrie story, the original story, and fell in love with that. And I've also seen a lot of the other adaptations of this story. There was the 2003 movie adaptation, which I think is very, very underrated, and a movie that I think if you haven't seen it, you need to give it a shot. There's Finding Neverland, which isn't an adaptation, but more a story about J.M. Barrie and the inspiration for how he came up with Peter Pan. It stars Johnny Depp and Kate Winslet, and it's a great movie if you haven't seen it. And then there's Pan from 2015, which I absolutely loathe. It's like they wanted to make another Peter Pan type movie and just said, screw it, we're gonna make something completely original, even if it completely goes against what that original story said. But the animated movie will always have a special place in my heart because it was the first one I've seen, and it's honestly the more memorable. Whenever I think of Peter Pan, this is the movie that usually pops up in my head, and I think for good reason. I don't want to say this is a completely faithful adaptation of Peter Pan, but compared to Alice in Wonderland last week, this is more close to its source material than that movie was. All the characters are fun. You've got the Darling kids, you have Peter Pan himself, you have the Lost Boys, and in my opinion, the character that really makes this movie what it is Captain Hook. In the Golden Age, Silver Age, and the Renaissance, one of the biggest things that everyone loves about those movies are the villains, and Captain Hook, I think, is just a fantastic villain. He's mostly a funny villain, like the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland. He's not really scary per se, but he's not hesitant to shoot his crewmates or threaten them when he's upset. But again, most of the joy of this character comes from how funny he is. And the humor especially kicks into high gear whenever he's interacting with the crocodile. And by interacting, I mean trying to escape so he doesn't get killed. Again, it's more funny than it is scary because I know other adaptations played this scenario as truly frightening. I remember the 2003 movie definitely did that. But the comedic timing is just so good. There's one situation that gets me every time I watch this movie. It's in the cave of Skull Rock when Peter and Wendy are trying to rescue Tiger Lily. Hook manages to escape the jaws of the crocodile, runs towards Smee's ship. Smee tries to catch Hook, but then the crocodile comes out of the water, pushes the boat out of the way, opens his jaw, and catches Hook in its mouth. And that is just comedy gold, and I love it. And the voices are just fantastic as well. Hans Conried, or Conrad, voices Captain Hook, and while he's really funny, I don't think he gets enough credit for the voice work he does for George Darling, which is a nod to the original play. The actor who would play George Darling would also play Captain Hook. But as George, he's really funny as well. He's trying to be the voice of authority, he's trying to put his foot down, down and be the man of the house, and he just constantly gets screwed over by his kids, and the mother, Mary, is just trying to be as calm as possible and keep him more grounded. But again, I don't think the voice work he does for George Darling gets enough credit. And then you have Bobby Driscoll as Peter Pan. He's charming, he's the stereotypical rebellious youth that was really popular during the 50s. Kathryn Beaumont, who just came off of voicing Alice in Wonderland, voices Wendy, and the dynamic that these two have is really charming. It's not really taken to a romantic level. They never share a kiss, and it's just more the types of romance that little kids would have. Another voice actor carried over from Alice in Wonderland is Bill Thompson. In Alice in Wonderland, he voices the White Rabbit, and in this movie, he voices Mr. Smee, who is Captain Hook's first mate. And he's just as great as Smee as he was as the White Rabbit. And the back and forth that he has with Captain Hook is just great. The score by Oliver Wallace is fantastic. It's got some catchy songs, with the most famous one being You Can Fly, and it's just such a great song. Even though it's maybe not as well known as When You Wish Upon a Star, Part of Your World, Under the Sea, Friend Like Me, A Whole New World, no, screw it, I think it's right up there. It's a fantastic song. And I really wish I could go on to praise this movie even further, and while I do love it, it's not perfect, and I think you could probably guess the criticism that I'm about to address, and it is involving its depiction of Native Americans. Oh, I still love this movie, but those scenes with the Native Americans, the Indians, it's just so awkward, so uncomfortable to watch. And the problem is, unlike a movie like Dumbo, where the Rustabout song just happens in one sequence, the Indian stuff happens throughout. Anything involving the Indians takes up a majority of the middle act. And it just boils down to the look of the Indians with those giant noses and the red skin, the way the chief talks, which I wouldn't have had much of a problem with it if he wasn't voiced by a white guy like Jim Crow was in Dumbo. The song, What Makes the Red Man Red, while the music itself is pretty catchy, when you actually listen to those lyrics, ooh boy, all I'll say is that it's not as bad as the Rustabout song in Dumbo. It's still not good, and it's still offensive, but that Dumbo song still haunts me in my dreams. And the worst part about it is that even when the Indians are off screen in the middle of the movie, it still continues. You have the Lost Boys and the Darling Sons pretending that they're Indians all the way back to Hangman's Tree, which, by the way, for a kid's movie, great name. Pan is pretending to be their leader and doing imitations of the chief, and you're just like, oh no, this is the reason why Neverland can never be a place where you stay forever. You could stay there for a couple of days perhaps, but after a while you need to grow the hell up and realize that what you're doing is wrong. And I love how there's two opposite sides of the coin in that situation, where you have Peter, who's the enabler, the source of all the problems, and the egotistical one that says, everyone loves me. And then you have Wendy, who tries to calm all the boys down and just tell them that, hey, we're going home, you can't stop, you can't act like this. But she does use a phrase, and that's, do you want to grow up to be savages? And I'm like, oh no, like if this movie were made today, it would not fly. And the weirdest part about the Indians, going back to the actual group, is that Tiger Lily is the only one that doesn't look like a racist stereotype. Her skin's not red. Everyone else, except for maybe one Native American girl, are offensive caricatures of Native Americans. So yeah, I couldn't go through this review without talking about that uncomfortable moment. But regardless of that, that doesn't ruin my love for this movie. Even watching this as a 30-year-old adult who is grown up, it still manages to bring the kid in me. I love the music, the songs, the characters are a lot of fun. That sense of adventure is very well captured. And in terms of being within the spirit of the original story from J.M. Barrie, I think it succeeds. It's a lot of fun, and I'd say it's worth seeing in your lifetime. Again, Alice in Wonderland is still my favorite movie within the Silver Age, but Peter Pan is a very, very close second. And maybe when we get to next week's review, I'll take back these words, but I don't think any of the other movies in the Silver Age come close to these two. And there you go, that's my review for Peter Pan, one of the most popular movies in Disney's animated catalog that doesn't have a live-action remake. Yet, there is one in the works now called Peter Pan and Wendy, which is going to be a Disney Plus exclusive. And it's being directed by the director of Pete's Dragon, which I didn't see. A lot of people said it's really good, so I'll have to give that a shot eventually. I've said many times that I'm not a fan of the Disney live-action remakes. There are some good ones here and there, but most of the time they're misses. And I imagine that this is just going to be a remake of the animated movie rather than another adaptation of the J.M. Barrie play. But I think at the very least, it has to be better than 2015's Pan, because that movie is still awful. Like, it's almost unforgivable how terrible that movie is. But we'll see what happens. Next week we'll be talking about the next movie in Disney's animation canon, Lady and the Tramp, which, despite being the fourth movie in the Silver Age, marked the beginning of a new era for Disney and the animated films. But we'll get to that next week. Now I want to know what you guys think about Peter Pan. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one. Hello everyone, I just want to say thank you all for watching my review of Peter Pan. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on social media, whether that be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Go check out my Twitch channel and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.